Welcome to episode number 19 of the Making Moves podcast, where we talk relocating and real estate in the Dominican Republic. If you're looking to move to the DR, this podcast is for you. If you're looking to make moves in real estate in the DR, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Josie Sells DR, and today we are filming part 4 of our now 5-part schooling series, where we sit down with different directors from different schools here on the North Coast and just get a better idea of the schooling and education options available to families that are looking to move here or families that are already here. I remember when I came here 3 years ago, this was lacking. Like I wanted more information. I was lacking the knowledge on where my kids should go to school and what options were available to me. So this podcast is for you guys to just get a clear, straight understanding of what's available to you here on the North Coast. So today we are at Isla Academy in Sosua, and I am joined by the director of the school, right?
That's right.
Mr. Sean Bennett. Sean, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
I just had the opportunity to, take a little tour of the school, and it's amazing. It's so unique, so different, so just, outdoorsy and beautiful. But I want you to start off by just telling us who you are and what brought you to the North Coast of the DR.
Right. Okay. So I had been teaching internationally for close to a decade.
Okay.
And I was working at a time in Tanzania.
What?
And the headmaster that hired me there had ties to the Caribbean. He was initially hired, I think, in 2012 to be the founding director of the Dominican Republic's very first gifted and talented public school. At that time, my first daughter had been born. I communicated with him and came over here to help him establish that, and in the process of that, also start Isla. So that is what brought me here to initially to the Dominican Republic. Though I spent my first couple of years in a town called Sosua before moving to the North Coast.
Okay.
Right.
Amazing. And you're originally from
Georgia.
Right. Georgia. Awesome. Right. Okay, so tell us what sets Isla Academy apart from, maybe other schools in the Dominican Republic.
Probably everything. It's not just like what sets us apart from schools here, but also I think globally. In many ways, we are the antithesis of what some people consider to be the traditional school. We often like to call it the factory school or the industrialized form of education. And after having lived abroad in so many countries, taught so many levels, when I was going to start our own school, it was really important for me to take advantage of the realities of the modern world. So there's a lot of things that we do that when we founded our school seemed to be maybe brand new or alternative or progressive, that you'll see a lot of schools starting to adopt now. I mean, we were one of the first schools in the country to do an exclusively inquiry-based form of education. We were one of the first schools to, and I think maybe the only one to fully maintain multi-grade classes. We do multidisciplinary learning. We design our own curriculum. Everything is based on project-based learning here. We were one of the first to integrate large forms of tech. So in many, many ways, a lot of times when the question is asked of me, especially in the beginning stages of the school, there was this question about, what are the things that you do that are different, or what are the things that you add to the school experience? But the reality is, it's a lot about what we don't do.
Okay.
We don't make students feel that they're ahead or behind of any particular standard. We don't divide students arbitrarily by their birth date. We sort of deal with every student based on exactly where they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So classes, it's not based on age.
So to a certain to some extent it is, right? Okay. So obviously there are certain types of activities where it makes a lot of sense for kids of similar ages to be around each other.
Right.
And our class groupings are based sort of around age. Like you'll mostly find a couple of years together in one major space. But for things like reading, writing, and math, the fundamental academic skills, we're evaluating students and then we're teaching them in small groups or individually based on the level that they need. If a student is 8 years old and is reading with 10-year-olds, there is no stigma in this place for them to go and do that in that space.
Right.
If they're 10 and reading with 8-year-olds, there's also no stigma to do that as well. But obviously things like sports and art and permaculture and music, it makes a lot of sense to have large groups together that are of a similar developmental level.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what are your like core principles and values that the school is sort of built upon?
I mean, our motto really says it, which is learn to love to learn. And, you know, we have this kind of what seemed to be a radical belief that if kids love school, that they will learn.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because sometimes I'll have parents who have maybe joined the school and they moved here. They don't really know exactly what we're doing here. And they'll come to me and say something like, my kid loves it, absolutely loves it, but I'm a little worried about that, you know, because many people's idea of school is pain, right? Yes. Many people's idea of school is anxiety, right? Or that, you know, they're going to tell me that I'm not good at something or whatnot. And if we're not implementing that, there can be sometimes a fear that, oh no, like we must prepare these kids for a world in which it's harmful.
Absolutely.
And so I think so many harmful school practices are justified by this idea that one day the world's going to be terrible for you. So we just want to go ahead and get you ready for that as a child. I don't think that we are preparing our students at Isla to be participating in a world where they are unhappy. Absolutely. We're preparing them for a world in which they're change makers, they're leaders, they're, you know, I imagine just like you, kind of like owning their own lifestyle and doing what they want.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. What ages and grades does your school accept?
We have students as young as 3, and we go all the way up through high school. So we've even had students as old as 20, I think, who completing their final.
Cool.
You know, Isla is able to offer, because of our independence, sometimes unique paths for certain students, and especially in our early years when we were growing as a school, we were able to bring on several non-traditional students that maybe they needed to do 2 years in one. Maybe they needed to do a GED to graduate on time. You know, we were able to do a lot of cool stuff. We've even had some students who did part of their freshman year of university here while they're also completing their high school diploma.
Cool. And so when you graduate from Isla, you get a DR diploma, or how does that work?
You get an American diploma from here.
American diploma.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're the largest independent school in the Dominican Republic, which means that we are not affiliated with the government bureaucracies here. And the way that we get around that is that we have affiliations with 2 accredited schools in the United States, and we register all of our students in those schools as well. So in many countries, they can just walk with our documents, but for those that need legalized apostilled accredited diplomas, they just use their U.S. diplomas.
Cool. Okay, amazing. What are the typical class sizes?
Typically around 15. I mean, we're on our 9th year, and that was an interesting question at the beginning because Isla was founded in a way in which we had all ages from the very beginning.
Okay.
So in our first year, we had students from 7 to 15 in one space at one period. And as we developed, we were able to divide them further and further. And I always felt like 8 was a minimum that you kind of need to have a culture of a room. And that, you know, there are class spaces that we have here, and there are age levels that allow us to go over 15 in some spaces, but then ideally that's around a common number.
Right. And the school has been here on this location since day one.
Right.
So how has it kind of grown and expanded?
Incredibly. So initially, I mean, if you take a tour around this, you'll notice that it's essentially a large mansion or a villa.
Uh-huh.
It had never been used as anything prior to that. It was somewhat unfinished. And at the beginning, it was some feeling of, insecurity. I mean, it doesn't look like a school, right? And it was those limitations that actually like spurred our creativity.
Okay.
Eventually, we kind of embraced the fact that it doesn't look like a school. It shouldn't look like a school.
Yeah.
It shouldn't feel like a school. If it does look like a home in some way, then we're going to embrace that whole idea of like family and home.
That's honestly like coming here. That was like the initial vibe I got was like, this place is cozy.
Right.
It's like a cozy, feels like you're going into someone's home that's like actually has like artwork on the walls, and it's just like you smell like fresh baked muffins when you walk in the door, and it's not just like the shell of a place.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm kind of always surprised at where we're able to find unique uses for some of our spaces and things like that, because over time, sometimes it takes the new eyes of people that have joined our staff to kind of go, oh, we could do this, we could do that. So I really often think like a lot of creativity, we do this in our art and in a lot of our projects here, a lot of creativity not comes from total freedom, it actually comes from your limitations. And I think that's where, if you really love the Dominican Republic, one of the things that you notice is you go, look at the amazing ingenuity of someone who maybe doesn't have that tool or that resource and yet can still complete that objective.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Okay. And when does your school season start and end?
It's like right on with most of the rest of the schools here. We typically like to start our first day of school the last Monday of August.
Okay.
Sometimes schools in the DR will start a little bit earlier than that, but we have a lot of Europeans here, and you know, if you're starting in the middle of August and they don't show up for 10 days, it doesn't do you any in favors. And then we end right around the middle of June. We're doing about 180 days of school. We take breaks in the winter holidays. We take a fall break that's coming up pretty soon, and then we take a Semana Santa break, and we celebrate every Dominican national holiday.
There's a lot of those.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
A lot of long weekends. Okay, this is a question from a parent actually that wanted to know. Take us through a day in the life of a child in, you know, the preschool program, like a 3-year-old.
Okay.
So what does their day look like when they get to?
The first thing that happens is they either jump out of your car and sprint through the door, or you're able, some people like this, you're able to walk right on in with them, right? And you walk through the gardens, or the kids walk through the gardens. Sometimes the kids will say, I got this, Mom. They come in, they start with a free play. Our day always starts, even for our high school students, with 30 minutes of freedom.
Cool.
So even though most schools in this area start at 8, we technically start at 8:30, which gives loose drop off. There's none of that sort of anxiety and trauma. Yeah, there's no bells here whatsoever. They come in, and then when I describe the preschool, I'm actually going to be describing all of our classes, because something that's unique about here is that, I mean, the essence of kindergarten, the essence of early childhood, we keep that going all the way. I'm a early childhood educator, and I also taught high school and taught university, and I always sort of kept those elements. So one of the things that we do in every class is we start our day with a morning meeting all the way up through high school. This is where we preview what's going to happen for the day. This is where we give shout outs to students that have been doing great things. And this is also where there's an opportunity to, we can be creative with this. This is a space for mindfulness. This is a space for social emotional learning, or this is a space for like pretty important content connected to our unit. After that, our students begin centers. These are independent learning activities, right? Guided by our teachers that are moving around the room. So again, that's also a commonality in our older classes as well, where we are educating them on how to educate themselves. And then we as teachers are able to go and sit with them one-on-one or in small groups and do real direct instruction based on need. Our preschool students have a morning snack that's provided here. It's always fresh fruit or something super healthy. They have a recess period in which they get to interact with students of other grade levels. They come back. Every time they come out of break, they often transition with some of the more academic content. They have lunch around 11:30, I believe. And after lunch, for our preschoolers at least, they often wind down with some reading and then some quiet time. There are some students, because we do multi-grade, that either don't need that or don't want that. And so if you have a student who developmentally is not looking for that quiet time, they're probably looking, that's where there's a great space for our teachers to do even further direct instruction with them. Our day finishes at 3.
3.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. And so then for like a 12th grader, would it basically be the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, our 12th graders, they also get recess. They have a recess in the middle of the day. Every class, including our 12th grade class, has one teacher that is with them at all times. So while we do have people who come in for math, permaculture, science, we have people who come in for Spanish and sports and all that, that teacher is always there with them, which means that there's never going to be a day where your kid's not seen. There's never going to be a day where the teacher doesn't know what they're dealing with, right? And the challenges that they're dealing with. And also having the one person there, much like in kindergarten or earlier grades, allows flexibility. If I have a science activity and it's flowing, why would we stop? Because the bell's going to ring. If it's not flowing, why would we stretch it just because the bell's not coming?
And wherever you didn't finish, you just go finish it.
Right. So it also sort of kills the idea that there are these disconnected subjects, right? The teacher goes here for math, and then they go some other place for literature. That's not happening here. Like, because it's all happening in one, it's all integrated. So when we're reading, we can be making connections to everything that we're doing in every other area of study.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so living on an island in the DR. I mean, this is an amazing environment. The beach is like 50 steps from the school.
Correct.
So how do you kind of integrate the island and you know, the environment into the curriculum or the...
This is a beautiful part of being an independent free school, is that we get to make our decisions about what we do based on several key factors. These are, who are the students who are here with us? Who are the adults that are guiding them? And then what are the spaces and resources that we have access to? So we don't have to do things simply because they might be done in another town or another country. We literally can go right into here. A couple of the things that we do. One, we're always at the beach. We have our own student gardens. We do permaculture as a major part of our curriculum so that all students are participating in the growth of the gardens here, the maintenance of the gardens. Our students are in the kitchen cooking, learning local cuisine. Our students are, I mean, in all ways, we're connected with the community. Also last year, our high school students participated in, I believe a total of close to 1,000 hours combined. Volunteer service with an organization known as Cabarete Sostenible, where they created community gardens and not just like did the digging, but literally went out, connected with the community, because to have something sustainable, you have to have local community connect with that.
Totally. Amazing. Yeah. Perfect. I was actually just going to ask about specific community-based projects that you're involved in. So
yeah, I mean, we've sent our students out to other schools to do actually leadership activities where they're teaching. We invite other schools in. We often invite a lot of other teachers in to come see what we're doing. We have an annual tradition where we collaborate with the students of Liceo Gregorio Luperón, which is the largest school in Sosua, and we celebrate Independence Day together. We do our marches together, the band and everything together. So we're kind of constantly connected to the community. Another thing that Isla has done over the years is we've given over $250,000 in scholarships to organizations like the Dream Project, Mariposa, and Inspire DR. Some of our very top graduates were students who came via those programs.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, extracurricular activities.
Well, what do you think is an extracurricular activity?
Sports, any sort of program that kids can participate in after school.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, meaning it has to happen after school, because even that term extra indicates that those shouldn't be involved. Like,
or if they are involved.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
involved.
Extracurricular activities, well, we do have an after-school program here. Again, we have campuses also in Las Terrenas, and we have after-school programs there. We have a massive theater program here.
Really?
So for the last 2 years, we put on the largest stage production of any theater production in the North Coast. So we had 600 people here watching our production of Aladdin. All of our students participate in costume design, acting, script writing, props, direction, all of it. We have a massive art department. In sports, we often connect with other schools and play with them. And in fact, one of our students invented their own sport here, which we have been able to bring other schools in. And then we're actually going next week to my old school to teach their students there and participate in
what intramural.
It's called airball. So as a part of this activity, he had to write a constitution for this. He had to set up rules. He ended up setting up a whole school tournament.
Okay.
And because of the excitement of that, we had a group of students who wanted to create a cheer team around that. We had a group of students that wanted to create a trophy around that. Like massive amounts. And one of the things that I love about that sport is that it's all ages, it's all genders. We don't have a boys volleyball team or a girls volleyball team. We don't have a group that's only allowed for high schoolers or only for middle schoolers. If you want to play, that sport was built for everybody to be a part of it.
What does airball entail? I'm actually curious.
It's kind of a combination of basketball, football, soccer, and handball. which requires very little equipment.
Okay.
And has not a lot of rules, which is super cool. It helps everybody to understand it pretty quickly.
Okay.
And basically involves like a couple of hula hoops, some kits, and a
ball.
And a ball.
Well, please invite me to the next airball tournament.
That's right.
I will be there. Okay. So in terms of just like who's working in Isla, your faculty, your staff, what are you looking for in the people that you hire here?
One of the trick questions that I ask usually in an interview, because a lot of times when teachers are applying to a job, they're applying for a specific position. So maybe they're a third grade teacher, or maybe they're a high school chemistry teacher. And the most important factor that we're looking for is someone that, even if we don't place them outside of their field of expertise, would be okay being outside of their field of expertise. And in large part, that's because we want you to be adaptable. We want you to be flexible. We want you to be capable of learning. And if you're coming to the DR as a new teacher, you need to be ready to be a learner. If you're teaching an integration of all subject areas in a school as unique as Isla, you need to be able to say, just because I've taught 15 years does not mean that I don't have to learn something new.
Right.
So that's a big one. And I have to be honest, like in our early years, there was maybe a feeling of pressure on my part from the local community to import all of our teachers. But over the last few years, I've noticed that the most successful teachers that we have here are people who either are homegrown, meaning we've developed them ourselves, or if they are expats, they're people who have already made a small life here on the island, even if it's in another place. As a former international educator, I can tell you, no matter what you tell somebody in the interview process that you plan to live there for 10 years, most people are really looking for a 1 to 2 year stint and then moving on. And, our goal here is to be that type of place where you can go into the supermarket and say, oh, she taught my son, and now she's teaching, the other son. And that's really difficult in most international schools because it's just the culture of movement.
So would you say you have a pretty low turnover as far as?
Yeah, at this campus, we only had to bring on 2 new teachers here, which was awesome out of our entire staff.
Wow.
But it goes with the territory. I can't say that that's always been the case every single year.
Right.
But that was the case this year. So we're super lucky to have this like real consistency. We also have a large number of staff who've been with us. Maybe not from the very beginning when we had almost no staff. It was just me. And a couple others, but that have been with us since like that first kind of big expansion. Our security guard who met you at the door has been with us for 8 years.
Wow.
The head of our cleaning staff has been with us for 8 years. Our assistant principal, our head of elementary, also been with us for 8 years. So that allows us to experiment and bring in new people and kind of mentor them, and it just makes things flow a lot.
Amazing.
Yeah,
It's a family.
that's right.
Okay, last question. What would you say to a family with children who are considering moving to the Dominican Republic?
Okay. I think if you're moving away from your home country, you're often going to have people question, look at that. You're going to have people question your choices, right?
See, yeah.
They're going to say things like, aren't you worried about healthcare? Aren't you worried about security? Aren't you worried about education? That's going to be another one, right? They're going to ask these questions. When they come to ask you a question about education, I think that your clear answer should be, I'm not doing it in spite of my kids. I'm doing it for my kids. The experience of raising your kids here, in my opinion, particularly if you have them in a place like Isla, there is no loss here. There is much gain, okay? In the ability to actually be involved in your kid's life, the ability to let your kids show up to school barefoot if they want to. So many people kind of move from their home country, and a lot of schools here basically promote the idea that if you come here from wherever you're from, don't worry, we're going to be able to recreate that experience for you.
Right.
And I understand people that want to move to a community that recreates that experience or go to a school that recreates that experience. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to, if you came to the DR because you wanted something fresh and something unique, we believe that your kids deserve that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good answer. I like that. Whatever they're cooking in the kitchen smells really good. Just saying.
Yeah, private chef that's come in.
I'm distracted.
She's also been with us for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so lunch, everything's included.
Everything's included. Yeah.
Great. Okay, Sean, thank you so much. It was amazing to learn more about it. And so if someone wants to like get a tour or inquire about registering, they just
we have a website. It's islaacademy.com. We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I run all of those accounts. You can contact me directly. You can send emails to islaoffice@islaacademy.com.
Amazing.
And call us if you need to.
Great. I appreciate your time.
You got it. Thank you very much.
If you guys got value from this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. And we will see you next week in episode number 5. We're going to sit down with the European school in Cabarete. Adios.